Hello, everyone. In today's video, we're going to go over how you can apply Occam's razor to no-code, low-code development, specifically using an example with Gavel where we're going to test different approaches to invisible logic. So Occam's razor is also known as the law of parsimony, which is a problem-solving principle that states that among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selective. In plain English, this means that the simplest explanation is preferable to one that is more complex. This is a really good example here in this particular workflow because when I first did it, I went for the most complex option first and then later learned that I just needed to use one simple thing that is no code in order to make it work the way I wanted it to. But it also taught me something as I went through this process, which is that sometimes something that will work within the workflow as I'm testing it will come out differently in the output document. In this particular workflow, what I wanted to happen is to have the address block, even though it is being collected in separate lines for line 1, line 2, city, state, zip, and country in the workflow, I wanted it to output in the document as a single variable that outputs this on different lines. So I can do that using invisible logic. So if I go into my workflow here, you can see that I have my line 1, my line 2. These are both text variables, as well as a city text block here, state, which is the combo box. If I go down, I can see that the zip or the postal code is a text block type. We also have a country, which is a combo box. And then I have here a mailing address invisible logic section where I have the text variable here, which is address, full mailing block with country. And then I've added some invisible logic here. And I have this on purpose split into two different types of approaches so that I can show you the difference. So I've said here that if address line 2, which not everyone has a line 2 in their address, if that is empty, then I want this new variable that I created, address full mailing block with country, to equal address line 1. Then I want there to be a new line, address city, a comma and a space, address state, a space, the zip or postal code, with a new line with the address country on the bottom. Otherwise, or else if address line 2 is not empty, then I want this variable to equal address line 1 with a return, address line 2 with the return, address city, a comma and a space, the state, a space, the zip or postal code, a new line, and address country. So it's important to note that you've seen here that I have new line here and a different approach here that I'll go into deeper in a second. So notice that when I run this, I have, let's say if I'm going to test this first section within the workflow, I've made it to where there's a third page, 1, 2, 3 here, which is the second within the workflow because the invisible logic page won't show. That pulls this variable that I created so that I can see what it looks like before I go any further within this particular workflow. So here I've just put a $sign, a curly bracket around the variable, and then a closing end bracket here with this address full mailing block with country. So what this means is that when this runs, we're going to test the two different variables that I created, or two versions of this variable, where the first one uses the new line, where the person has not input a second line. So let's try that one first. So if I say 1, 2, 3, client street, no line 2, and then I just put city, let's say the state is California, and the zip code is 12345, and the country is United States, then what this looks like within the workflow when I've used new line here is that it looks correct. However, if we go all the way through and run this through to the output document that I've created, where the output document just has one thing on it, which is our invisible logic variable that we created with that new line process, then that PDF actually looks like this, which is not what we're going for. So within the workflow, as we saw, it looks correct because it looks like we had this in a new line, but when it comes into the output document, it says new line. So I also tested this where I tried with BR instead. So I said, I wonder if it's BR that would work instead. So when you do that, the same thing happens where it looks fine within the workflow, but on output it shows BR. And the solution is actually through Occam's razor test to just use return in this instead of new line or BR. However, just take note that that is a different process than, and it looks different in the workflow than this one does here. So you need to know where this information is going to go. So let's test it the other way and show you that in the workflow, using the new line, using the return or an enter key is going to make it look weird in the workflow, but make it look correct in the output document. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to change line 2 to add something like apartment 1. So now when we run this, we're going to go and see that in the output document, it's going to be correct without any new line. But if we run this from the start to see the new page, so I'm going to say 123 Client Street. I'm going to say apartment 1, whatever city, California, 12345, United States. Then when we continue, you can see that it's all on one line, which is not what we want in the output document, but is how it comes out in the workflow. And we're distinguishing this from the BR and the new line to this using the return. So it depends on how you want this to show up, where you'd want this to show up, and how you'd like it to appear. So it's correct here, but not in the workflow, and vice versa with the BR and the new line. So just to kind of go over how to actually do this, what we'll do is we'll take off the new line ones. And if you do new line or BR, it works either way in the workflow itself. So I'm just going to take this one off here and take this one off here and show you that these are all variables. So if we say add, and if we wanted to add a return, a lot of the time we just use like spaces and commas in here, but you can actually use your enter key like this and say add, and then you can move this to where you want it to go like this. I need one more, so I'm going to go in here, I'm going to say return or enter, say add, and then I'm going to move this just above country. So now when I save this, this is going to work as the other one did here in our output document. Remembering that it's not going to look that way in our test page here because we don't have the BR or the new line. But maybe in this case, it's more important to us that it outputs correctly in the output document than it is for us to have it work within the workflow itself. So I'm going to go ahead and just take off this page because we don't need it anymore. We're focusing on the output in the output document so that it looks like this. And we've understood now that instead of trying to go within a no-code editor and first go to code, which did work within the workflow, if we want our output to be that we have a nicely formatted address within our output document, instead of trying to code first, we should try the no code option first and then add code on if we need to. So if we run this just one more time, let's save, run, we'll be able to view both options for how this would work. So if we do 123 Client Street, let's do a line 2, apartment 1, let's do city, California, 12345, country, United States, and continue. Continue to the end. We'll see in our output document that we have this nicely formatted. And if we go back and we edit this line 2 and we take it off, now that we've updated both of these parts of invisible logic to have the return rather than the code, this is going to be formatted correctly as well. So I hope this was useful. Just remember to always go with the simplest explanation and option first, and then add code on later if you need to. So that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.